Normally I wouldn't say it's that big of a deal, but because the Eagles lost last week and the Cowboys won, I think that puts a little bit of an extra emphasis on it. The Eagles, I don't think they've started 0-2 since 2007, so they really want to avoid that, and they don't want to fall further behind the Cowboys in the division race if they can help it. So I think that kind of adds to the magnitude of the game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's very interesting. This game is really early, and they play twice before Thanksgiving this year. So your Eagles, Cowboys, last year both games very late, kind of dictated the season. These two games going to be really early this year. So I don't know if that's a positive or a negative if you're Philadelphia, but just changing the narrative from this season to last.
Sure. I mean, if they can win both games, then obviously it's a big positive. It's one less thing they have to worry about later in the season. They can just, focus on the rest of the games and hope that, things play out and they were able to win the division. Getting a big lead on the Cowboys early would be real beneficial. However, if it goes the other way and they're behind the Cowboys, and they were probably counting on later in the season to try and make up some ground, so it'll be much more difficult if they can't do that now.
All right, Dave, real quick on the Falcons game, just give me your opinion of the way the game kind of went. Obviously Philadelphia got off to that slow start, and then they looked like they got into a groove in the second half. I thought Chip, with that 3rd and 1, he hands the ball to Matthews. Bradford's throwing the ball really well. I don't know. I'd rather see Bradford maybe throw the ball there since he was in such a rhythm there. But what did you think of the night Chip Kelly had?
I thought they should have used Tim Tebow in that situation. No, wait, that's right. He's not on the team. I was kind of wondering, the first half, they were just so out of sync. I started to wonder maybe if Chip didn't make a mistake by limiting their playing time in the preseason, because it looked like Bradford had never worked with those receivers before, which he really hadn't. So it kind of took him 2 quarters to finally get in the groove, but once he did, you could see why they made the trade and brought Bradford here. I thought that he really looked like a franchise quarterback in the second half, which is kind of nice to see if you're an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they went with Matthews on that run instead of Murray. Were you, moving forward, watching what they – do the Eagles have the personnel to fit what Murray does?
That's a good question. I don't know about their offensive line. I've been saying from the get-go that they made a mistake by letting Evan Mathis walk. I thought they should have at least let him play under his old contract. You gave up a 2-time Pro Bowler for nothing and put in Alan Barber, who has never proven that he could be a full-time starter in the NFL. He's a really good backup, and if you need to plug him in an emergency, he's your guy. But I just don't know that he's the guy that can play full-time, and I think that was evident on Monday night. I thought Gardner played okay. I thought Peters was kind of inconsistent. I'm a little concerned about whether he's going to be able to regain the form that took him to the Pro Bowl every year. So last year Murray was running again behind the best offensive line in the league, and this year that's definitely not the case. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
No doubt. Dave, I want to get a couple thoughts on the the Cowboys without Dez. I know that was a big topic today for Chip. What does Chip expect the Cowboys to look like without Dez Bryant?
He's not real sure, although he doesn't think they're going to miss a step, but I definitely think they will. I mean, Brian is, and he's on the Julio Jones level as one of the elite receivers in the NFL. You can't just plug in the next guy like you normally would do with most. I think the Cowboys are really going to have a tough time replacing this production. From what I can gather, I know Escobar's probably going to play a bigger role, the backup tight end, or the second tight end, if you will. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that Romo's really going to lean heavily on Jason Witten. It seems like whenever he needs a big completion or, there's a crucial situation, he always goes to his tight end, and they form such a rapport over the years that I think there's a mutual trust there, too. And so I kind of have to believe that Romo's going to probably look for him when he really needs a big completion. Dave
Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City covering the Eagles. They take on the Cowboys here on 97.3 ESPN. I know we mentioned Sean Lee and their defense. They don't have Hardy, no McLean. Gregory's out. Skandrick's gone, too. This team wasn't looked at as, the doomsday defense here. But what is Dallas's defense like this year with the return of Lee but some other key losses?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, they seem to do a decent job against Eli Manning last Sunday. I really haven't looked into him that closely. I would tend to caution people to. You look at the Cowboys and they're missing all these guys, but I learned a long time ago that you can't just automatically assume this is like a blowout because of that. I mean, I remember Minnesota 2 years ago where, no Adrian Peterson, no anybody. They were missing like 7 guys, I think, and they blew the Eagles' doors off in Minnesota. I mean, granted, this one's in Philly. I think the circumstances are certainly much different because it's the Eagles' home opener. Fans and the players are both going to be pretty pumped up, but I would caution people against, thinking this is like an easy win just because there's some guys missing on the defense and Des Bryant.
Dave, were you surprised at the lack of pass rush the Eagles were able to get against the Falcons? And then does that concern you knowing they're going up against this Dallas offensive line?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I expected them because I think the Falcons were missing two starting offensive linemen, or they had picked up like one guy just off the street like a week before, and for them to contain Fletcher Cox and even especially Connor Barwin, who led the NFC in sacks last year. I mean, he didn't really get a sniff on that, Ryan, to tell you the truth. So yeah, that's a little bit disconcerting. They're going to really have to change things up a bit. Maybe get Vinny Curry more involved. Maybe blitz a little bit more. Michael Kendricks kept saying that he wanted to be, the premier blitzing inside linebacker. I didn't see him really going after Moran all that much. He was more dropping in the coverage. So I think they're going to have to change things up a little bit, maybe take some more chances.
Obviously, this Eagles team moving forward here, Sam Bradford looks like, in that second half that he, a lot more comfortable. But, Jordan Matthews, I would assume he's their number one option. What's going to happen when teams start, game planning a little bit more and rolling their coverage his way? Did you see a suitable second option Monday night?
I think Nelson Aguilar is going to be the guy. I think he's going to be the guy that emerges as their premier wide receiver. I really have no basis for it. Just the fact that, what I saw in the preseason and what I saw on Monday night, I mean, he really wasn't a huge factor, but I just can't believe that Jordan Matthews is their number one guy. I mean, he's a really good slot receiver. For him to drop that pass or let the pass bounce off his hands late in the game, that's something that a number one wide receiver just doesn't do. And so I think they need another option, and I think their first-round pick is the guy. I think as the season goes on, he's going to be the one that emerges as their go-to guy.
Better hope. All right, Dave Weinberg, Press of Atlantic City here on the Sports Bash 97.3. What did you think of Kelly's decision to kick the field goal? I said, Dave, I wasn't against them kicking it. I thought they rushed it, and this guy has not been the most dependable guy the end of last year. Preseason didn't see him a lot. Then you rush him out there to kick a 44-yarder. You got to make it indoors, but I don't mind the decision, but I thought he rushed it.
Yeah, he kind of hesitated almost, like he wasn't sure whether to go for it or not. And by the time they finally got out there, they did have to rush him a little bit. But even so, you cannot miss a kick in the dome. I mean, there's no reason to. There's no wind. There's no nothing. I mean, you're kicking in sterile air. You can't miss that kick. I'm sorry, you can't. And I think Chip is I'm kind of worried that he has such confidence in Parkey. I mean, I know he got off to a great start last year, but he struggled at the end of last year, like you said. He struggled in the preseason. He's been nursing a little bit of an injury, although he said that's not a factor. But I mean, if he misses another kick, or even God forbid, an extra point or something, Chip's really going to regret keeping him around. And I think they should at least bring in some guys to try out, to work out a little bit, and maybe just to have a fallback plan if you need it. But he seems to be willing to ride with Parkey the whole way, and that I don't understand.
And you just brought up, an interesting point, that these extra points being deeper. Could you imagine it coming down to missing the length of an extra point in one of these games? I think that is another thing that you really have to make sure that your kicker is dependable with that kind of situation. Dave Weinberg from the Press of Atlantic City, everybody, every Wednesday here as we take a look at the Eagles and the Cowboys. I know it's early, but your initial gut feeling is?
Eagles blow them out.
Whoa.
I know you're not supposed to caution against it, but I just can't see them going 0-2. And the sense I've gotten in the locker room today that they're just really, really looking forward to showing people the kind of team that they're supposed to be. and I think they're going to come out guns blazing. I think they win by double digits.
All right, we'll be keeping our eye on the developments for the rest of the week. A lot of injuries for Dallas, so we might see a lot of St. Augustine's Jack Crawford in that game. All right, Dave, always a pleasure, pal.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.